Then there's Israel and Iran. I guess I'll tell a quick personal story about it. I was actually on a backpacking trip when it happened. I was out in the eastern Sierras of California, and I just remember after I came back from my long overnight trip in the mountains, which you can see on my second channel actually, the first thing I saw when I got back into my car, had cell service, and looked at my phone was that Israel attacked Iran. But again, if you've followed this event as much as I did, you might also get the feeling that something is off and the story of it is not over, not by a long stretch. But basically a recap of it, you remember that headlines made it seem like World War III was about to happen. Even I thought it could be the brink of something big. Social media was on fire. You couldn't scroll through Instagram reels without seeing rockets flying through the sky and edits of the Ayatollah. But even the credible analysts on the mainstream media were saying that this is definitively the most dangerous moment in the Middle East in years, decades even. And then just as quickly one day, at the single tweet of Trump, it was over, somehow. Missiles flying, critical infrastructure being disrupted, global supply chains threatened, thousands of people suffering, and then just poof, it was gone. Nothing to see here anymore. It all somehow settled down between these two countries that have been at each other's throats for years on end. But when you look a little bit deeper, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, logically. And I'll give you probably the simplest way to think about it. If you know the history, Israel has spent decades preparing for a war with Iran. They planned this attack years in advance. That's how they were able to launch the preemptive strikes from within Iran's borders. And they openly call Iran an existential threat. They've been doing it since, like I said, decades ago. The point is that this was a massive undertaking. In fact, the whole name of the operation was called Rising Lion. If you don't know, that's actually a reference to the previous flag of Iran before the current administration, the previous regime, indicating that their end goal of this operation is regime change. And now, we're somehow all supposed to believe that they decided to stop for good without achieving any of their strategic objectives. All they really did was poke the beehive essentially, provoke a massive country, inflame the region, and then get nothing out of it without actually removing the threat. Again, we're supposed to believe that they launched this war, which has been decades in the making, and Israel was actually winning by most accounts, that they just decided to stop it, not finish the job, not achieve any of their strategic objectives, and call it quits. The leader of Iran, the Ayatollah, is still there, the Revolutionary Guard is still there, the nuclear program, by most reports, is still mostly intact. If anything, they could have even strengthened the public sentiment around the regime and rallied people in favor of their government. So, none of the strategic objectives that Israel has been obsessed with for years were achieved. So logically, does it make sense that they just supposedly stopped for good? Does it make sense that Israel, after risking so much to start this and planning this so far ahead in advance, just walked away with nothing to show for it? Or does it make more sense that this was not the end? That this is actually a start, possibly setting the stage for something even bigger? Because historically, these conflicts in the Middle East, they don't just disappear. Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, you know the whole deal, you know how long we've been there. Because every time we say a war in that region is over, it never truly is. It just mutates into something else. And for some strange reason, it just so happens to always be against one of Israel's enemies. And we just so happen to get involved. So I don't think I'm the only one who feels like the Israel-Iran conflict isn't over yet. There was no conclusion, only at most an intermission. These Middle East conflicts, they drag on forever. They always drag on forever. But this time, it feels a little bit different, doesn't it? Because it truly is riskier than ever before. It involves two major nations that either have or are developing nuclear weapons, including one of them that has openly threatened to use them in a previous conflict. And even if you pay attention to our own domestic politics, you can see the signs that something is brewing. New bills constantly being introduced, some of them to send more foreign aid and weapons to them, some of them to ban any criticism of that country, and even literally mass government visits of American politicians to that country. Of course, we still always have our military bases and ships in the area, and in all this, it seems like the chessboard is still set for something to happen. And that's why everything about this Israel-Iran situation still feels so off, because the way the story was presented doesn't really match reality. The media just largely reports on what's going on as if it's an isolated situation, but when you look at the context of the broader Middle East conflict going back decades, you'll know that this is not the end of the story. And mark my words on this, come back to this video if I happen to be correct or incorrect, but I predict that the conflict between Israel and Iran is going to erupt once again within a year from me saying these words.